missed out. Hey there. Welcome to the science of sustainable performance. Um, if we haven't met, my name's Jessie Jacob. I am one of our Culture First community managers here at Culture Amp. My other colleague, Kristen, is here as well. So make sure to share some love and holla at our new girl and make her feel welcome. um, and then I'm also joined today with Alex Process. I'll let her introduce herself too. But she's one of our Cultureverse Chicago chapter leads. But Alex, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, excited to be here. Welcome, everyone. So I am right in downtown Chicago, literally right now. For anyone in the Chicago area, we do have an upcoming event. Very excited about it. But I'm always excited to talk about all of the research reports. I'm a huge nerd. I'm actually currently getting my PhD in under the IO psychology umbrella in organizational leadership, and I'm also an adjunct professor in IO psychology. So you may hear me kind of chime in from that lens, or just, I have a lot of opinions in general. So glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to nerd out with you. I know when this research came out, we were jamming hard on everything. And so I was like, let's keep the convo going. Um, the purpose of today is to explore the latest and greatest of Culture Amp's research on the science of sustainable high performance. I also just realizing I had a typo in the title slide. We are winning, folks. And the idea is to engage in meaningful conversations about how we can apply this to our professional lives, how we can apply this to our teams, and how we can, apply these learnings and research to our organizations with ultimately without burning out. That's the key. So our goal is always to maintain a supportive and inclusive space with a zero tolerance for harmful behavior. However, having these kinds of conversations can be hard and challenging and bring up lots of things for folks. And so, especially around burnout, and that's totally okay. So, in the theme of sustainable high performance, we ask that you do what you need to do to take care of yourself, make yourself comfortable, step away if you need to, pause, take a breather, do what you need to do. And we welcome your feedback on if and how we can continue to create a safer, more inclusive environment as we grow here. So, all right. We're going to do a check-in. We're going to get into the research. You're going to hear from some community members. We're going to get into some breakout topics. And if you're like, breakout room, I'm leaving now, please don't do that. You can stay in the main room and you can just like listen in on the conversation too. You don't even have to engage if you don't want to. That's okay. Uh, so uh, don't run for the hills because I said breakout rooms. Uh, and then we'll just talk about some closing announcements and anything else that's going on in the community. So, if this is your first community gathering with the Culture First community, which I know it is for a few of you, Jason, my new LinkedIn connection, welcome. If you're like, who are these people and what is it you say you do here? Well, we're a group of people around the world united in the shared belief that a better world of work is possible. And I like to say, and by golly, we are willing to do something about it. This community is supported by Culture Amp, which is an employee experience platform. And our whole mission is to create a better world of work and amplify the experience and impact of over 100 million people at work. And we're not going to do that with just like HR technology alone. We're going to do that by having these kinds of conversations. That's what this is all about. So, in our time together, we ask that you embody these 5 core principles. And so, the first one's around fostering belonging and acceptance, just letting people feel seen, valued, and appreciated for just showing up, being themselves, and being here. We ask that you have the willingness to reflect and grow. Yes, we want the future of work to evolve. We want our organizations to change, but ultimately that starts with us being the change we want to see in the world. The third one's have the courage to be vulnerable. Whatever that edge of vulnerability looks like for you, it's different for all of us, but leaning into having these hard conversations and creating more trust and psychological safety on this journey as we have hard conversations. The fourth principle is that we ask that you put your learnings into action, that the conversation doesn't just stay here, that it continues on, and that you implement this into the way that you live, into the way that you work. And that's what the whole reason the breakout sessions will be. And then the last one's connection inside, business outside, which is like a fancy way of saying that in the context of our time together, we ask that you connect first as a human being. And if that leads to you all connecting and doing business later, that is super cool. We would love for that to happen. But like hardcore sales and hardcore networking and all that stuff is like not the purpose of the gathering. We're here to like learn and grow and do the work together. Can I have a thumbs up that you all can agree to these? Amazing. Thank you. All right. So, part one of our check in. Would love for you to just tell us what's your energy level today. Are you red, yellow, green? Red's like, woof, I made it. And that's like a win in of itself. Yellow's like, I'm okay, could be better. And green's like, let's freaking go. Um, I would love if you could add your emoji to your name if you don't know, or yeah, or drop it in the chat, whatever you want. But if you want it to kind of live with you for the next however long we have together, you can hover over your Brady Bunch square on Zoom, and there's three blue dots in the top right hand corner. And there's a drop down feature that says rename. So keep your name, but then drop what your color is next to your name. You can drop an emoji, you can actually type it in, whatever. Um, whatever floats your boat. Yeah, great. Long week. Thank you, Rachel, for already courage to be vulnerable. I appreciate you being here and sharing how you're actually doing. Hi, Jen Toro. Welcome, my friend. Yellow at the end of the day. Hi, Teresa. All right. We got some solid Grello happening here. Okay. Part two of
Jackie, I love that you're still here, even though you're distracted by the kids. So very much appreciated.
seriously. All right, drop us in the chat. What fills your cup outside of all the work stuff? Like, I mean, speaking of sustainable high performance, we're more than our jobs. What's happening outside of work? What's filling your cup? What recharges you? Group chats about trash reality. That's amazing.
Well, that explains my earlier green about Love Island tonight.
Yeah, okay, that
The
checks out.
Nicolandria hive. Yeah, that's this is my entire life right now.
Popsicles and Pringles. That needs to be like your like if you were to like be an artist for an album, that needs to be your album title. And then you get a sponsorship from Bomb Pops or something. I don't know. All right, we got a lot of touching grass. Yes. Pilates, we got a lot of yoga. I don't know what I'm sorry, Robert. What's bachata? I don't know what that is. Is that a dance? Is that a dance? Oh, cool. That's awesome. Love that. Pets,
Carrie,
climate.
love to see the launch of the Salt Lake City events. That's great.
It was a
So
long time coming, but we made it. We're
We
there
made
now.
it. That's all that matters.
all right. Thank you all for checking in here. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes here of why we're here to chat the science of sustainable high performance, the latest and greatest research at Culture Amp. If you don't know what Culture Amp is, that's really cool. It's an employee experience platform. And the high level is that we do employee engagement surveys. We have a performance management tool. We do people analytics. We talk about career development, and we have one of the largest employee data lakes in the world. And 32 million employees at this point have filled out one of our surveys, which is like an insane number of human beings. And so we have now done some research on performance, and we're going to get into that. But I want to know, like, pulse check, who has read the report? It is not required. It was not like you did not need to have read it in advance. But yeah, give us like a little thumbs up reaction to the camera in the chat, whatever. Okay, so like a decent amount. Great. Think of this as like a book club for the report. We're gonna speed read you the news. Did anyone watch that when like Barack Obama is like slow jamming the news with I loved that so much. Can we bring that back? All right. Okay, so decent amount. Okay, cool. Alex has dropped the link to download the report as well. I'm just gonna share the QR code here in case you want to scan this. And you are like, how do I get access to that? All right. So getting into, I'm going to take like 3 seconds for you to get more information or scan this QR code. Great. Hope you got it. Otherwise, it's in the chat. Okay, a little bit about this report and the methodology behind it. So the study examined performance management data from 567,000 employees across 1,500-ish companies. That's bananas, from all sorts of industries and global companies. Regionally, 19.8% of companies were sampled in APAC, 20% in EMEA, 59% in North America. This is for, I know Alex would like totally like the the
No one
academic
else
in
cares
you.
about this. Essentially, I think the biggest like TLDR, right, is that like there's representation globally. And as you might imagine, there were all different scales, right?
Yes.
Like, you know, within organizations, there's also like cultural elements, right? When we're trying to kind of compare regionally. So, you know, what Culture Amp did was really level set, right? So
Yes.
it is as much an apples to apples as you can get. We'll put it that way.
Yes. Yes. So what you need to know is 500,000 employees, lots of industries, global approach, and that every company has different versions of how they do performance ratings and like the different rankings that they give to folks. And so our team of people science research folks had to go in and basically standardize those ratings in order to create more consistency across this global data. So that's what you need to know. And crazy statistic that only 2% of employees sustain a high performance rating over multiple performance cycles. Um, that did this blow anyone else's? Yeah, sad trombone is like so accurate. Why don't we have a soundboard right now? Okay, so all of this to say is that sustaining a high performance rating is actually incredibly rare. So what this means is that you got rated a high performance like two consecutive cycles in a row. Only 2% of those like 500,000 people did that. And so that's wild. How's everyone else feeling about this? I teared up a bit. Okay. So, anyone else
Yeah, I mean,
share a
I
little
think
like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really tough too is, you know, you think if you don't get that same, you know, 4 or 5, whatever it is, you know, each time suddenly you're failing, right? Like, I'm sure a lot of people might have that feeling, and I feel like we're kind of like set up that way from, you know, when we go through school, it's like you get all A's, right? The minute you drop from an A, then suddenly, I don't know if you grew up in the family I did, but I felt like I was failing if I, if I wasn't still getting that A. So it's
Totally.
like there's so many different impacts of that. There's so many influences on that as well.
Yes. Deb, hey Deb, what you
Hey,
got?
I came in late, so I apologize if I ask something that has already been covered.
No
But
problem.
so this to me, it makes sense though, because the population of the company is changing all the time, right? So that you're quote unquote competing against other people. So to think that you could be the top 2% for that long, you would have to be, and it makes sense to me. It's a little lower than I might have expected, but it actually does make sense to me.
Yeah, and I think also some organizations also limit the number of people that can actually get that high performance rating, right? Like in order to give people a promotion and those kinds of things. So like it's kind of hard to give someone the same thing when you're trying to justify someone else on your team also getting a pay raise and a title change and all that good stuff. So,
Yeah, that's
but
what I
all
was gonna, oh, sorry, Jesse. I was
yeah.
gonna say the same thing. I've worked somewhere where you really couldn't, like they tried to restrict the same person getting in a row because it was tied to how much their raise would be. And then there was also, even if you were a team of high performers, you were only allowed to give one, even if everyone was a high performing, because it screwed up the financial things. I thought it was a really terrible way to do it, but that's how it was. So, yeah.
Totally. Yeah. No, great. Yes. So much nuance.
And
Well,
Oh.
And then also 83% of people never getting rated as a top performer.
Yeah.
I mean, you wonder why employees hate performance reviews.
Right?
Like, boo on you. Never getting rated as a high performer, yet you wonder why I'm not like passionately committed to your company and giving 147,000% for my measly 3% raise you're going to give me.
Yeah. Yep. So we have a lot of beliefs about how we do this, and there's not really one right way, and there's a lot of yes, organizations differ. Okay. I want to keep moving us on, so I'm speed reading through this as much as possible, but you can nerd out some more on the report. So, searching for unicorns is not the answer. Oftentimes, organizations, the biggest mistake they'll make is they'll be like, well, I need to find this amazing human being who's a high performer. And believe it or not, even your lowest performing employees can reach the top. And so, the data's revealed that one in four employees didn't reach that milestone until after 18 months in their role, meaning like how long it takes an employee to earn that first high performance rating is what this is showing. So if performance were a characteristic trait, it would not take years for it to be recognized for the first time. So this is wild. It's also going to show that like it's not an inherent characteristic. You're not just like, I feel like there was like a whole wave of job applications that was like looking for a rock star. It's like,
Oh,
okay,
there's still some of those out there.
true. Yeah. All right, scanning through here. Also, high performance is cyclical. This is a fun chart, but you should read more about this in the report. But moving you on here. There was one noticeable differentiator for employees who had sustained high performance. So, for 2 or more cycles in a row, compared to with people with high performance who had a decline. Oh, we zoomed in and looked at the small group of employees who had a sustained high performance for 2 or more cycles in a row and compared them with high performers who had a decline in their rating. And the one noticeable differentiator, can anyone guess that hasn't read the report? What do you think it is? Drop it in the chat. Any guesses? Good manager. Yeah, okay, good manager. Probably like okay, very close. Yeah, you guys, you're in there. You're close. It's someone there, the environment. So someone's psychological safety is actually the key differentiator for someone who is able to have a sustained high performance rating. Like, do they feel safe making mistakes and sharing ideas and speaking up? And oftentimes we're going to get to the folks that said management. We're going to get to that too. That's part of this. So it's not, so all this to say that being a high performer isn't a characteristic trait. In fact, it's about the environment with which that employee is working in and do they feel psychologically safe. That's
Yeah, and it's not all on the manager, right? We're going to talk a little bit about the impact of leaders, but but really what that says is we all have a role in fostering the environment that makes it a great place for people to perform well.
Yes. Okay, so things that organizations can help create environments, and you all are going to talk more about this in your groups, but onboarding. So employees who rated onboarding questions more favorably are more likely to be high performers at their organization. Goal setting. So high performing employees are setting more goals and getting and receiving more consistent feedback. So that's important. And then, yeah, like I just said, feedback, like people who are actually getting continuous feedback and giving feedback are more likely to feel more psychologically safe. Obviously, that makes sense, right? All right. So for the folks who are talking about leadership, you are right on top of it. So leaders who received the rating of a set a new standard, have a much higher proportion of higher performing direct reports than lower rated employees. They also have the lowest proportion of lower performing direct reports. So the inverse is also true, meaning low performing leaders have the highest proportion of low performing employees under them, which is like so wild. So yeah, employees under high performing leaders are also more likely to be high performing, is the sentiment of what this is all trying to say. And which you all were talking about, like leadership matters, but also if your leader is high performing, then you're likely also doing well. Alex, do you want to jump in? What were you gonna say?
Yeah, so one thing that's coming up, because a lot of times when we think of top performers, those of us that have done 9-box exercises or other type of kind of succession planning and plotting people, right? Sometimes we can like automatically think, oh, it's like the top right box, right? To be clear, we're just talking about how people scored in that performance rating, right? So this doesn't include any of the potential ratings and that influence. But there's absolutely a lot that can be discovered around how we're thinking about placing people when it comes to potential and performance.
Yes. Hi, Yvette.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great, I have a quick question. So, hi Alex, it's Yvette. um, I really love this fact about leadership performance as a multiplier. Would you say that that is based on the fact that high performing leaders recruit and develop high performing teams, or is it because high performing leaders set the standard and model the behaviors that would be a cause and effect a high performing team?
I'm not a people scientist, but basically what this data and research is showing is the latter. It's not just that high performers are able to see high performing potential, but this research would say, no, if they're actually living and breathing what it means to be a high performer, then they're creating an environment and a team, which is also setting those employees up for success.
Okay, so they create the conditions for
Correct.
Okay, a high performing team. Thank you.
Yeah. Noted, if my boss says I'm performing poorly, I will tell them it's their fault. Sure.
I agree.
Yeah, let us know how that goes, Carrie.
Yeah, I'm kidding,
Yeah.
obviously.
I know.
It is funny.
All right. I want to keep moving us through this. But the gist of all of it is that the science behind sustainable high performance, it's rare. Companies with high engagement also have high performing employees, which makes sense. Employees who sustain high performance feel more psychologically safe at work, like the environment and the conditions are supporting them to do their best work. And leadership performance is a multiplier. This is like the high level of the research that you need to know. Again, you can read more about all the nitty gritty stuff, but I want to make sure that we get a chance to have a discussion, hear from a couple other community members before we get into the breakout session. Okay, moving us on here. Nia, one of our chapter leads, she runs a topic-based chapter. She's based in Berlin. She runs a topic-based chapter on this, basically, the science of sustainable high performance. And so if you want to keep nerding out, that is a group that would be wonderful for you. So I'm going to start this over here.
Report for me. I'm going to and this key insights from this report for me, and I'm going to share that with you very briefly. So the first one for me is that there has to be a shift from individual stars to team success. Right? Through the example of Peloton, this is reflected very well in the report, that we need to support each other through the speed and the endurance, right? And high performance is not led by a single person, but by teams. As a result, organizations must start rewarding enablers and not achievers. And we need to have more and more of team rituals that recognize alignment, collaboration, adaptability, and team contributions. right? Then second one, engagement and burnout can coexist. And in my experience, they mostly do coexist, right? Because high engagement leads to high performance, which leads to high burnout, right? It is employees who are highly engaged who care about performance and results and struggle to build boundaries. So if organizations want high engagement and high performance, it is also their responsibility to think about high well-being and take measures to prevent burnout. Right? So we need to start thinking about performance seasons. We need to think about recovery time in our work systems so that high performers thrive without burning out. And lastly, the third one is we have to, evolve the leadership. It needs to focus more on behaviors than on outcomes. It needs to focus on psychological safety, on coaching skills to offer more developmental and narrative based feedback than evaluation. And there has to be a great focus on onboarding and goal setting, right? So these were some of the key highlights for me. And I really invite everyone who's passionate about workplace culture to think about what high performance looks like with well-being and without burnout.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I want to hand it over to a couple chapter leads who have brought their kind of take on the report and their research. And then what we're going to do is break out into 3 groups about how you can apply this research to either your own professional growth, your team growth, or at the organizational level, the HR level. So start to kind of have a think about which of those tracks you want to take. And then Alex, would you mind grabbing the link for the sustainable high performance culture for Nia's chapter and dropping that in the chat for the squad? But with that, I'm gonna hand it off to Austin Drabick, who's the Columbus chapter lead, also runs our Culture First Founders chapter, and handing it over to you, my friend, to share a couple minutes about introduce yourself, obviously, and share your take on like what about this research. Over to you.
Thank you, Jesse. I'm glad to be able to be here and talk about this because when I first came across it and read it, like last month or maybe it's like 2.5 months ago now, and haven't been able to stop thinking about it and talking about it since it came out. Was building co-founding an HR tech startup company for over 6 years, and mainly in the kind of burnout space and then also performance space. So those pieces were not surprising to me, even though some of them were interesting to see. But the 2 components that I keep talking about and want to share here that's a little bit different from what I typically hear people talking about is the first one. On that 83% of employees are never assigned a higher performance rating over 3 years. That sticks out to me because from a perspective of generational differences, and when you look at Gen Z and millennials, their average tenure for both of those generations is less than 3 years. So for Gen Z, it's about 2 years, 3 months. Millennials, it's about 2 years, 9 months. So if you look at 2 entire generations, 83% of them essentially aren't receiving a high performance rating um, during their time at a company. And so that, to me, that's just a curiosity of like, is that part of why they're leaving because of their relationship with performance, or are they just not getting those performances? So to me, that's an interesting piece that the report isn't highlighting generation specifically, but to me, that's something I extrapolate out of looking at that data and thinking, oh, that means most of these 2 folks aren't getting high performance. And the second piece that's most interesting to me comes towards the bottom of the report and mainly links out to another Culture Amp article, which is around the idea of constructive feedback and how pretty much all employees across the board are motivated by belonging and career development. But when you look at underperforming employees, employees that are performing the way you would expect, and then even like good performing employees, all of them don't find constructive feedback as motivating as high performers. And to me, that's just interesting because it's one of the only things that high performers uniquely appreciate more than the other groups of folks. And looking into how do you pull levers of increasing high performance, constructive feedback can be one of those levers. And then being very careful of a culture of praise, which can often happen when you're like, oh, let's have a culture of feedback. And it really becomes that sense of safety versus bravery. And it gets half baked into a culture of praise. So being very careful when incorporating constructive feedback into making sure it truly has that constructive element. And then the second component to that is that it has to be for developmental purposes only. A lot of times we incorporate feedback into performance ratings, and as soon as that happens, the motivation for high performers goes downhill. So when feedback is tied to performance rating, it's not motivating anymore. So when you're focusing on that constructive feedback, it needs to be tied purely to developmental conversation. And obviously, we can look into that, which is why psychological safety is important, because if that doesn't exist, constructive feedback gets a little bit hard. People get more defensive and stop listening.
Oh man, can we give a little love for Austin for sharing? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, snaps, praise, emoji, reaction, whatever. Choose your own adventure. Yeah, great point about Gen Z. I didn't even like think about that. Yeah, of course. Fascinating. Okay. Carrying us on, Sarah Harold, over to you, my friends.
Coming in.
You own this
Um,
emoji in my brain.
I'm Sarah Harold. I am a chapter lead for the great city of Pittsburgh. Um, and I will selfishly plug myself. We're going to be relaunching the Steel Cities chapter. We're going to rise like a phoenix. We were one of the original chapters to launch before COVID, one of the original Fab Five, and I'm coming back. Um, coming in hot soon. So keep an eye out to support us. So my hot takes as I look at my sheet here, tons of great data, of course, from our friends at Culture Amp. Some of these we've touched on, so I'll gloss over those. But what stuck out to me, a quarter of employees question if their evaluation is fair. So, okay. And 58% of HR executives believe the systems they're using to gather the feedback. They question whether they're either if they question that they're questioned in whether or not the systems are either they're failing to drive for engagement and performance. So the HR executives themselves are thinking that the systems that they're using are failing. So my hot take around that statistic is something that I've said as an HR practitioner all along. The systems that we use are never going to solve for performance management. So when leaders come to me and say, I can't jam what I need to say into the system because it just doesn't work for my team. Yeah, great. So write it outside of the system and then come to the HR team and we'll force it in whatever way we need to. Because as an HR practitioner, I'd rather have a quality performance appraisal written on the back of a napkin to give an employee what they need rather than jamming some pile of BS into a system to make the character limit and the system happy. Because the reality is employees care about the feedback if it's relevant, honest, timely, meaningful, impactful, and delivered by someone they respect. Boom. You know? So the reality is the feedback is only going to work, the coaching is only going to work if it's relevant and meaningful. So I boil it down to, if you want a high performing culture, if you want high performing environment, it starts with the basics, folks. It starts with trust, it starts with setting achievable goals, it starts with having communication with your team members that's something like, a regularly scheduled check-in to see if the goals that you set can actually happen. Hey, is this even possible? What do you need? Do you have any roadblocks? How can I, as your manager, help you? Oh, are you drowning? I see you look tired. Do you need help? How can I support you? Are you drowning? What can I take off your plate? And, you know, that's your job as a manager. That's your job as a leader. And if you're not having these conversations as an employee with your boss, and you don't feel like you have that kind of trusted relationship with your boss to have these conversations, to speak up and speak out when you need help, when you need support, when you need roadblocks moved out of your way, then your your review doesn't mean crap as an employee, because they're so out of touch with what you're working on that who cares what red light, green light, yellow light means on your goals at the end of the year, because it, I mean, they just don't have a clue what you're doing day to day, and couldn't couldn't describe your reality to their boss if their life depended on it. So when it comes to how do you sustain a high performing culture, yeah, systems are great and forced ranking sucks and it's outdated. If you want to have a high performing culture, you got to start with the basics and build a trusted relationship between employees and their boss, and open up communication and help each other out and rebalance workloads and get them support when they need it. um, and have regularly scheduled check-ins, not quarterly reviews and then forget about them while you're traveling the country and sitting in meetings all day.
Ooh, can we have a little love for Sarah for sharing? Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So in case you're wondering, my brand of HR takes more work, but it's the only way it works. You can't ignore people and expect them to perform.
Yeah.
So treat people like people, and for that reason, sometimes execs don't like my approach. But performance management takes heart and honesty.
There was that we wanted to know what that feedback was in the chat. So type it in the chat for us. Relevant, honest, meaningful, timely, yada yada yada, all of the things.
Cool. I can copy and paste.
I want to be conscientious of time. Alex, what do you think? Should we hop into breakout rooms now?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm also wondering, yeah, no, let's do that. Let's do I was gonna say we should keep one of the groups in the breakout room, but no, we should go do that. Okay, so how about we go into the breakout rooms for like 10-ish minutes, something like that?
Let's do 10 minutes, and we can come back and do like our action items.
Literally the people who are like, oh my gosh, I can't be in a breakout room, I can't join the discussion, that's okay. You can literally just go in and listen and turn your camera off. That's totally fine. Like, do what you need to do. So the rooms for the breakout rooms, I'm gonna open them up right now. You can go to a session around your own professional growth, how you apply this, how you're going to apply these insights to your team, or maybe at the org level as well. So Alex will be taking the conversation around the org. Mika will be taking the one about how to apply this to your team. And Paula and Sarah Harold are going to take the one about how do you apply this on the individual level. So enjoy the convo, join whichever room you want, and we'll see you back here in like a little under 10 minutes.
See you in a bit.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope that conversation was beneficial. Anyone willing to share how that conversation went? Any aha moments that were had? If you do share, please don't share someone's name unless they gave you permission, or just share like your experience. But yeah. Anyone want to come off mute and share? Nada. All right, well, I'll share. Kristen and I were nerding out here about performance. And I was talking about, I was just saying, I love what Austin, we were both nerding out that we loved what Austin was sharing about like Gen Z and how we have this culture of like need to have immediate gratification. And there's almost like an unspoken expectation as Americans that you level up and get a pay raise and a title change within a year. There's like, there's kind of an unspoken thing about that. And also I know with my Australian colleagues, it's like, no, you don't get that until like 18 months at least. You know, it's like interesting that that's a cultural thing for us at global companies, even thinking about like, I loved what we were talking about, like almost like decoupling the feedback. And so I was actually showing Kristen in the Culturant platform, there's a spot where like you do your performance review and like you submit to get feedback from people, and then that goes to your manager and then they give you feedback for your review, right? But you don't see that. But then there's a whole other area where you can give like anytime feedback. And we try to push that as much as possible. Just like give feedback at any time to people. You can request feedback from people and like getting in the habit of that. And how that can be just as motivating when it's not coupled specifically with your like comp and your leveling and all that stuff, and the intrinsically motivating things that can be beneficial for you as an employee if you're not getting this high performance rating. So anyway, that was my rant. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, so this is Carrie. We didn't really talk about this, but one of the things I wanted to add is that you can do this, like you can provide that feedback not just in an up and down format, but like across the board. Like I just started a new role and I've been consistently giving my boss feedback on how she interacts with me and like saying, "Hey, I really appreciate you said that. Thank you so much for validating that," or "Thank you for calling that out. I appreciate you reminding me of those things." So you like it doesn't have to be just leaders down. And for a lot of new folks, like newer in their careers, they may not know that, but that's something that we can instill across all generations. Like this doesn't have to come from your boss. You can provide your peers feedback on how you're working with them, or things that you appreciate, or things that would go better. So I think that's also important for developing that psychological safety, is instilling that trust 360.
We do like a thing internally on our team where we nominate folks who've done awesome every month, basically, and then you like can win a prize. And I actually nominated my boss this month, and then she won't know because I filled out this like silly form about it. And then during our one-on-one, I was like, "Hey, by the way, I nominated you because like X, Y, and Z, and you're doing all these things, and I just like wanted you to acknowledge that like you're doing a lot of stuff, and it's a lot. So thank you." And she was like, "Oh my God, wow." We're like, "Yeah, that should go, it should be a what you're saying, Carrie, like it's a multi-directional street. It's not a one-way on this feedback situation." But anyone else want to share something that they can take action on, or something that came up during the breakout rooms?
I would just tag on to that, an amen on everything said about giving feedback in different directions, and in creating that psychologically safe culture, which in our breakout on organizations and with Alex, we were saying psych safety isn't just like kumbaya, everybody's having this harmonious time. It's creating a culture where you do actually seek conflict in order to be able to bring out, the best stuff. And that includes giving constructive feedback. So it could be also giving peers a lot of, affirming feedback in real time, but knowing that when you're giving that positive feedback, you're also earning the right to give peers constructive feedback as well. And so here to going in all directions, and whether it's upward, downward, sideways, of just modeling that and initiating that around you, is giving the positive feedback, as well as making it safe to give constructive feedback where people know you have their well-being in mind.
Love that. Thanks, Christy. Thank you, Robert, for sharing some great resources and frameworks in the chat, by the way. This is awesome. So if you're folks, make sure you're taking a peek at that. I want to be conscientious of time. I can stay on for a few minutes longer if folks still want to keep nerding out, or we can wrap up. Give me like a thumbs up if you're like, yeah, I want to stay on longer, and 0, ooh, that's okay if you're like, no, let's wrap up. That's cool. Okay, great. Love this. Okay, give me one word to describe how you're feeling in the chat. Type it in the chat. Don't press enter, but give me a thumbs up when you have your word. Okay, great. All right, drop it in the chat. Let's go. How are we doing at the end of this day? Serious. We're excited. We're connected. We're intrigued. Pringles and popsicles. Appreciative. Nerd validation. Awesome. I'm feeling inspired. I want to go like give some shout outs on my team in our Slack community. So that's what I need to do right now. Okay, well, thank you all for being here. We'll send out the recording and the link to the research and the link to the blog post that Culture Amp has around giving effective feedback. Thank you, chapter leads, for coming and joining our conversation, helping moderate, helping share your perspective. I appreciate you. You all are the best. Let's do a culture first clap out. So Alex, will you clap us out? What's about to happen is we're all gonna come off mute. Alex is gonna count to 3. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3. We're gonna clap, and then this meeting will be over.
All right, let's do
All
it.
right.
Everybody ready?
Thanks for being here, team. Cheers to co-creating a better world of work.
1, 2, 3.